Hello and welcome everybody. My name's Maddie and I'm the Mayor of Croydon. I'll welcome everybody new and everybody that's returning to Mayor Talks. This is the first one we've had because we've been trying to set this amazing interview up, and it's one that I've been particularly looking forward to. We have with us today Derek, who is representing Home Start, one of my chosen charities for the year. So Derek, do you want to talk us through who you are and your background? Welcome to Mayor Talks.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Derek Terrell. I'm the operations manager for Home Start Croydon. I've worked with the charity for just coming up to 4 years. Home Start Croydon has been active since 1989, so 32 years now that we've been serving the families in Croydon. My previous background, I've worked in the charity sector for over 10 years, but before that I worked in a number of large commercial organisations as programme manager. I worked on logistics and distribution and things like that.
Brilliant. Right, I think that gives us an introduction to the first question that we've discussed talking about today, and specifically about Home Start. Do you want to talk our listeners through what Home Start do and who they are?
Yeah, I'm glad you've asked that question. It's actually a question I use whenever I go out and do talks to other groups, because I think there's quite a lot of misperception of what Home Start is and what it does. And it's good to have the opportunity to talk about that now. Quite often people think we're involved in housing or helping people buy homes or set up homes, but we're nothing to do with that. We're a family support charity. We support families with young children. As long as the family has one child under the age of 5, they're eligible for support from Home Start. And that support can take a variety of different ways of delivering it. We have one-to-one support, where a volunteer directly supports a family over a long period of time, several months. Or we have support groups, various support groups. We do information sessions. So quite a lot of different things that we do for families that have a need for support.
Brilliant. So you've always talked about who you support. Do you want to give us just a few examples of kind of what that support would look like?
Yeah, so an example might be a family that's new to the borough, just moved into the borough, and doesn't really know their way around. They don't know what services are available here. They don't know how to interact with those services. So our volunteers can help them sign up with a GP or find their local children's centre, hook up with other families with young children around so that they begin to build their own support network. So that's sort of at the lower end of the type of work we do. But we can also help families who are going through marital breakups or dealing with bereavement. Families who perhaps have just lost their job and need some help around budgeting or understanding their finances and things like that.
I think one of the many reasons that drew me to Home Start, I've got such a love for you guys, is the wide variety of support you can be to families. Any family that's got with a young child through a difficult time, it's like they'll have somebody that's there to put their arm around them if they need it. You can imagine that Home Start will be there for them if they need it. And I've heard so many stories of families that could have really, really, really struggled if it wasn't for the fact that Home Start has stepped in and just provided that little support network at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. The support we provide is completely individual and tailored to each family. So it's not just an off-the-shelf package. So families come to us with all sorts of issues and problems that they want help with. They already have the skills to do some things, and it's just about focusing that and helping them to understand what's the best way forward. So no two support arrangements that we have are the same. Everything is very different. And I think one of our big strengths is the ability to be absolutely flexible and agile and able to understand each family individually and provide the right package of support for them, whatever that is. from a listening ear to helping them take their children to the park or attend appointments, looking after children while they're seeing a GP. There's just so many different things that our volunteers do. It's difficult to sort of list them concisely in a short interview.
I know, and that's one of the challenges of this format. It can be very difficult, particularly with the charities, to be able to get a full picture for the scale of the support that they offer. I just look at my own very, very tiny example. And from summer before last, from pre-COVID, going to one of your coffee mornings and from realizing I managed to leave my Liam's nappies in the car. So your guys looked after from him just for 30 seconds while I dashed to from Lidl. Other supermarkets are available to grab the nappies, and they wouldn't even question it. It was just like, yeah, no problem. Back in 2 seconds. I don't think him or my oldest even knew that I'd gone.
No.
They were so engaged in what you guys were doing and the arts and crafts they'd set up. And that's a tiny, silly little example, and it's in the grand scheme of things compared to what Home Start do, but it's just nothing phases anybody there. They're there.
No, well, we do try to be very adaptable. The staff working within the charity are totally committed to supporting families. And you're right, we won't say no unless there's a very, very good reason. We're always ready and willing to step in and support somebody, even if it's just for that 2-minute trip to the shop. But we've been supporting some families for a year or more. It just depends on what the family needs.
From the next kind of question we looked at is, what are the main issues your families face? From which I think is a fairly good point where we move on to that sort of discussion, because you said about the fact that you'll never say no. So you must have seen a wide variety of things.
Yeah, there are all sorts, and obviously since coronavirus has arrived, new issues have come up, and we've had to deal with those. But looking at individual families, it can be that they just don't know what services that they can access, and they need some help with that. They may be going through a particularly rough time. We work with families with perinatal mental health issues, twins or multiple births, and even for families with their first child, just adjusting to parenthood and all the changes that brings, and having a trusted ally who can see them and talk them through the process. All of our volunteers are parents themselves. They know all the pleasures and pitfalls of parenthood. They can show people that there's always a way forward, there's always a solution to problems, and just generally build their confidence and make them better parents.
And it really always seems to me when I hear Derek say about from the fact that, reminding families there's always a way forward. I've talked quite a lot in this channel and in various other locations about my own history of perinatal mental health problems. And I was very lucky I had a good support network around me, but I always wished I'd known about Home Start back then. I finally became to kind of aware of just what you guys could do in years once I started my own recovery. So it was kind of past when you would have been particularly helpful to my family at that point. But as I've said many times, I always promised myself that I would do everything to help learn what I'd say, put into practice what I'd learned from as far as being ill. And from as soon as I came across Home Start, I was so adamant that I wanted to support all the work they were doing, because it sat so well with my own experiences.
Well, all of our volunteers have their own set of life experiences, and all of that is hugely valuable to us. It doesn't really take us too much time to find the right volunteer for a family when we know what the family wants to achieve, what their goals are, what their current issues and setbacks are. We can generally find a volunteer who's already experienced that themselves, and that makes the support that they give that family absolutely valid and right for that family.
And I think that is exactly the secret behind Home Start. From is the uniqueness and how tailored the support is. I know from so many of the volunteers that I've known through Homestart are people that have used Homestart services themselves and have come back and offered their own experiences and support to families that go through it again. The message that I often bring at any opportunity is the fact that however low you feel, the sun does come up eventually, and there'll be a time when you feel better, and never has that been more important to remember than right now in the middle of COVID. But I think the volunteers coming back to Homestart would very much live that point. They are people that have been gone through challenges, and they've come back once they've met with Homestart and their own strength, got through it, and they come back and then are trying to do this, offer exactly the same to people afterwards. It's an incredible story.
Yeah, and for us, really, that's the ultimate accolade that we can have, is that families that we've supported when they're at their lowest ebb and really struggling, once they realize that there is a support network that can get you through that, and once they've been through that and come out the other side, the number of them that then want to volunteer and do the same for another family is huge. And for us, that really is, that's the icing on the cake, really, because that shows that what we do works. It shows what we do is valued, and also, sadly, shows that there's a continuing need for that. And the demand at the moment is increasing quite a lot because of COVID.
I think that's the second time that you've brought COVID, and it doesn't take long with any of these interviews, because it is obviously so much a part of everything that we're living with at the moment. But it might be quite a good point to start discussing sort of how you've changed during COVID and how you've carried on managing to offer the services you were.
Yeah, well, obviously, we're coming up to the 1 year anniversary of the first lockdown, and during that time, we have continued to support families. How we support them has changed quite a bit, and sometimes we thought we were getting back to normal and it changed again. So I think the biggest change for us was that all of our face-to-face support became online and virtual. So either through Zoom sessions or telephone calls or WhatsApp calls, the families were still getting to see their volunteer every week. The support groups that we run were still running every week. It's just that we've had to do it in a different way. And that extends also to how we train our volunteers. So we're doing that currently all online. But I think for us, the biggest change is the change in the type of activity that we've been doing, because like many other local charities, we've switched quite quickly into food parcel provision, care packages. We've been running extra craft sessions and sing-alongs for children. We did a Christmas party on Christmas Day for isolated families. We had that run by some volunteers. In the week before Christmas, our volunteers cooked and distributed 110 Christmas dinners to 35 families in the borough who otherwise wouldn't have had a Christmas dinner. So beds, we're constantly being asked to find beds. I've lost count of the number of beds we've found and supplied to families. Quite often that's families who are in emergency accommodation where they've had to flee from domestic violence or something like that, and they're given a flat which is completely empty. So we've found furniture for people. We've done medicine collections. Just the list is endless, the number of things that we've had to do that's different as a result of COVID.
Wow. I always reiterate what I say, Derek, please asking if there's any way I can always come and help with any of those things, not just as mayor, but just as me.
Well, you're quite helpful. You're helping to spread the word. One of our biggest worries is awareness of what we do. We tend to just get on with what we do quietly. We're not seeking the limelight, but sometimes the limelight is what you need in order to grow and be successful.
And I think I would reiterate to anyone that is watching this, they are a very small, humble charity, but the work Homestart do is absolutely unreplaceable in Croydon. I know around the country, but I can obviously only focus very specifically on Croydon. I've reflected often about the what we've seen and the changing cultures as a result of COVID on this channel previously. But one thing that comes up again and again and again is the fact that how incredible the outpouring of genuine goodwill that is associated with COVID has been. The number of people that really have gone above and beyond the call of duty to help people in this really difficult and dark time, and how humbling I found that. I nearly always say COVID has brought out the best and the worst in humanity. And I, as a general rule, try to seek out some of those really incredible people, and they're the ones that I try to put on this channel and give the opportunity to promote what they do. I wouldn't be exaggerating when I said that Homestar are that, and you've heard things that they've done on top of what they have been doing anyway. It's awe-inspiring.
Well, I think from our perspective, it's just our nature that we want to help and we want to be there for families. So if we know that families are going hungry, we'll do what we can to feed them. If we know that families are suffering from isolation and loneliness, which has also become huge during the pandemic, then we'll put on events to help them alleviate that. When we were able to, we ran outdoor groups to bring young parents together who wouldn't necessarily meet with other young parents. We've moved all of our groups online, but we've opened them up to more and more people. So previously, some of our groups would have been limited because of the location where they were run as to how many people could attend. And when we do that on Zoom, those limitations go. So we've seen those groups grow double in size, and all those people, they're all out there in the borough and they need some support.
I think that's actually quite a useful reflection, actually, from the positives that can be drawn from the change of working. So you found that you can actually access more people as a result of online.
Yes, that's right. We can reach more families and more children in the groups that we do.
And do you find that means that there's an increased amount of work, or find that it is more manageable?
It does lead to increased demand. The groups themselves, not so much, because if I or one of my team or a volunteer are running a Zoom session, whether there's one person on the other end or 100 people on the other end, the work is the same. But I think what it does is it uncovers the needs in the community that we weren't otherwise aware of. And it's those additional needs that need extra support that drives the additional work, because we will find that we are contacting families that we weren't aware of before who could do with some help.
That's, I think, it's difficult to know how to word this, but I think a very powerful part of the reality of COVID it's uncovered so much that there are those of us that kind of knew was going on, but brought to the forefront the scale of the need that was already there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is true. I think people have become more aware. Families that are needing some help have become more aware of the services available to them. But I think also seeing the number of people needing help has probably emboldened some of them to actually come forward and seek that help, that before they were just afraid to do that or didn't know how to do that. So it is definitely, I think it's made people more aware of what can be done for them. And that's a good thing, because otherwise those support needs were going unmet, and families were struggling and suffering without knowing how to get help.
And I think that if there's one thing I would like to take away from today is, in anyone is watching this, never feel afraid to seek support. There'll always be somebody there. There will always be someone there to support you. Whether it's just a friend to put your, even at the moment, virtual hug, or if it is something more practical advice, or everything in between. Homestart are a very, very good starting point, particularly for anyone with under children. But if you don't come into their bracket, the support is still there. Never suffer in silence. Please reach out, and somebody will be there to help you, to your local counsellor, to your GP, to the likes of Homestart, to Age UK if relevant. And the support will be there, and they would be genuinely pleased to hear from you.
And from our perspective, even if we can't directly support a family, either they don't meet our criteria or they're asking for things that we just can't do, we will generally know another organisation that can help them. So we can quite quickly signpost people to the right place if we're not the right person.
So yeah, reach out, whoever you reach out to, and any of those organisations, whether you come under their bracket or not, as Derek says, they'll be there for you. Let's try now, though, to bring it back to more specifics about Homestart. We obviously talked briefly about some of the online groups. Would you want to talk, our listeners, through what a kind of typical group session would look like, so they can idea of what they might be signing up for, essentially?
Yeah, so when we started just running them online, they replicated what happened in the physical face-to-face group. So they would follow the same pattern, and usually the group pattern, a lot of our groups are sort of focused on specific issues, or they all have a theme each time that they run. And typically a group will last for maybe an hour or an hour and a half, sometimes quite a lot longer. Some of the groups go on for half a day. There'll be some introduction and welcome to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and safe in the environment that they're in. And then they'll move through a number of topics and themes. A lot of the times those topics are chosen by the participants. At least one of our groups has a suggestion box. So at the end of each session, the people who've been there put in suggestions for what to be the topic next time. And the group leaders look at that and review that and choose topics from that. But we also bring in external speakers. So there might, again, from memory, we've had local authors come in and talk to people about writing novels. We've had makeup artists, we've had jewelry making. So lots of different guest appearances to help people just learn a new skill or try something out. For children, we do a lot of arts and crafts based activities, even still doing those online. We do arts and crafts, we've done cookery for children, we've done a lot of sing-alongs, we've done Jackanory style story reading so that children can get a story read to them over a period of time. It's lots and lots of different things. We've even got a cycling group. So they're not cycling at the moment because the rules don't allow, but we've got a ladies cycling group that meets up, or used to meet up, once a week and go out so you can enjoy company, get some exercise, see different parts of the borough, access the green spaces and the parks that we have. Again, it's just a huge, huge variety of different things available.
You make it sound so magical, Derek.
Well, it's not me that makes it magical, but it is magical. It's a huge team of volunteers who are giving their own time, using their own experience, understanding what the needs of these families are, and developing solutions for that.
Well said. I stand by my point, though, that it is incredibly magical, Homestart. Out of purest interest, just quickly changing the subject, but for those that are wondering, Derek isn't currently outside. He's doing the right thing. He's still at home. He's just got a virtual background. And what you can actually see is Homestart's headquarters in from the virtual world behind him. Do you want to tell from our viewers where where you're based?
Yeah, so the building that you can see behind me is our offices. It's old Victorian almshouses. They're Grade 2 listed. It's a lovely place to be. It's very quaint and quite old fashioned. It's not necessarily a perfect place to have offices, but it is a great place to work from. It's also very centrally placed in Croydon. We're just down by Reeves Corner, near the Minster Church. So we have easy access to trams and buses. We're just 5 minutes walk from West Croydon Station, a little bit longer to East Croydon. So we've got good links around the borough from where we are. And the courtyard that you can see behind me, we don't use all of it. It's used by a variety of different organisations, but they're all charities and local community groups. It's like a little community hub in the heart of Croydon.
And I can, as I referred to before, talk with personal experience. It's wonderful. From sitting out there in that summer day from the last time I was with you, with from my eldest sitting there from concentrating the hardest I think I'd ever seen him outside school, from on the arts and crafts activity, and Liam laughing. He was only about 18 months at that point. It was lovely. It really, and it was a hot summer's day. I was already feeling incredibly stressed because my husband was away from overnight, which is fine. I mean, I'm more than capable of managing, but it doesn't mean it doesn't find a very stressful time when you're suddenly on your own with especially with the new one. So it was really nice that I knew on that day I was going to go to Home Start and just have that activity and that focused time for the boys.
Yeah, during the warmer summer months, it is a wonderful place to be. There's usually something going on most days. We've got the grass courtyard area at the front. We've got a secluded and secure courtyard at the back where we can let children run and play. They can't get out. It's completely safe. So there's lots going on. We've got some rooms that we have that are what we call our community rooms, and they're available to the community. The community can come and use that space to hold meetings or to hold little groups. We've done, as the mayor has said, we do coffee mornings regularly. All sorts of things happen in that building. It well worth a visit if anyone's in the area.
And not in terms of COVID, unfortunately, of course, but
no, not at the moment.
But I do reiterate Derek's point. It really is worth just popping down. If you're just walking along, oh, I wonder what's happening in there today. There'll be something. From once we're through this very difficult and dark time. But as we've kind of indicated, even now, there might not be happening from the headquarters, but there is always something happening at Home Start. So I strongly encourage everybody to reach out and just see what they're offering at the moment anyway, even if it is only virtual.
Yeah, we've got a big schedule of groups that run. If people want to know more about those, they can get in touch and we can tell you what groups are running and when. There's probably throughout the course of a week, there's maybe as many as a dozen different groups running at different times. And obviously, if anybody feels that they need the more intensive one-to-one support, then they should also get in touch.
It might be worth, if you're happy to, Derek, if you just put some of the contact details in the comments below this video on YouTube after the event.
Yeah, I can do that.
I think that would be really useful for our watchers. We've obviously talked in a bit of detail about how the work's changed over COVID. But is there anything other aspects of it, how it's changed? Say, we obviously talked about the demand growing, we've talked about the fact that you've gone online, but is there any other way that you found the kind of services have altered?
It has altered. Home Start started nationally back in the 1970s, and as I said earlier, in Croydon in 1989. And at that time, all we did was our one-to-one home visiting support. That's the more intensive volunteer connected to a family type support. The biggest change has been the move towards more group-based and community-based support. We still do our one-to-one support. We'll always do that. That is our core reason for being here. But that does limit the number of families that we can get to. Whereas with groups, we can get to a much, much larger audience. So group-based work is growing. That's probably the biggest change over the last 10 years. But also the level of need, the sort of the threshold at which we get involved. We are generally an early intervention, low threshold type of organization, but as time goes on, people's problems get worse. And so we find more and more complicated issues that we're having to deal with, more families with multiple issues that need to be dealt with. So the demand and the difficulty is increasing, but also our ability to get to more of those families has improved as we've introduced more and more groups.
I think it'd be interesting to pick up on that point you're making about the fact that families are presenting with more and more complex needs, and you're finding that you're needing to support them. One of the first things that I learned as a counsellor was that whatever issue someone contacts you with, it's only the tip of the iceberg. You get to speak to that family, you'll know that there's far more than what's actually they've originally presented to you with. So you find yourself helping and working with a lot of families for a lot longer in a lot more varied and complex ways than you did at the start of when they came to see you.
It does happen, and occasionally what we find is that as they become more comfortable with us and more trusting of us, they do reveal more things to us, and sometimes the things that they then reveal push them beyond what we can really help with. So at that point, we're looking to find other services that will be able to support the family. One particularly uncomfortable thing at the moment is that domestic abuse is on the increase. It has accelerated a little due to COVID, but there were already signs that it was increasing before the pandemic started. We're not domestic abuse advisors, we're not trained to do that, but we know people who are, and we can very quickly get people the right help if that happens. And I think that's one of the things that people hide most often, and it's only when they feel safe and secure and trusting of us that they're prepared to reveal that.
Yeah, and I think that does take us full circle to me the point I started beginning, the value of these early help groups like Home Start. You can build a relationship with Home Start that you might necessarily struggle to in other organisations, because they are people that have been through it. They are people that genuinely know what it feels like to be in the position you're in. And that does create a bond and a trust, which allows you to be able to then talk more openly about wider subject areas.
Yeah, for us, it's really important that people feel safe and comfortable to talk about those things. So whether it's a one-to-one support arrangement or in a group, we make sure that we have time for each person and a safe space for them, whether that's just in a private space. Quite often we find in our groups that people are quite prepared to open up about very difficult issues, even in a group with people who are effectively strangers. But sometimes the comfort of strangers and not already knowing all of your life helps people to open up more. So we do find a lot of times people will tell us stuff that they've never told anybody else outside of their very, very close family or friends.
That's doesn't surprise me. It's a joy to hear, but doesn't surprise me to hear, because I keep pointing out, I can't praise this group of people enough highly enough. When you become mayor, you are bombarded with people asking charities that want you to choose them to be your chosen charity. But for me, with all three of my charities, there was absolutely no debate about it, and Home Start were the first on my list. I really know the incredible value that you guys have. Obviously, it helped that it fits in very beautifully with what my message and my theme for my Memorial Year, which is about early life.
We're obviously very, very happy and pleased that you have chosen us. It does help us raise our profile, raise awareness of what we do. And as that improves across the borough, then other things come with it.
Well, I'm doing my best. Never easy in the time of COVID, but every opportunity that I get, I am presenting Home Start, and I will continue to do so. So anyone that is doing us the great honour of watching this video, just take that away from it, if nothing else. Reach out and to speak with groups like Home Start, because they want to help. It's not even a case of the fact that they're there to pay them. Most of them volunteers. They're just people that want to make a difference and help you personally. And I apologise for the background noise from my son's homeschooling and the printers going.
It's just modern life.
Very much so. If you're waiting outside the door, come and get your print. Come and get your printout. I'll say it's a no. Must be sending more. I think the next question that we've talked about is what would you say is the biggest challenge facing Home Start at the moment?
Every time I talk publicly or with groups about the challenges that we face, there are three. There are always three. They're the three that have always been there and will probably always be there. One we've touched on a little bit already, and that's around awareness. It's about people knowing who we are and what we do, and that we're there and we're available to help them, and getting that message out to as many people in the community as possible. And that's why being one of the Mayor's chosen charities is really helpful for us this year. This gives us an opportunity to improve the general awareness of what we do. The second is volunteers. We are very much a volunteer organisation. We have a very, very small paid staff, but we run on volunteers. We could not operate without volunteers. It's volunteers that run our groups, it's volunteers that support families one-to-one, and the volunteers are the people who bring the life experience to our organisation and support the individual families, parents and children. So we always need more volunteers, and there are a number of different roles volunteers can do for us. So I would urge anybody who's thinking of volunteering and would like to volunteer in a family type organisation to get in touch and find out about what they can do as a volunteer with us. And then the third one, which I always leave to last because it's the one that always makes you sort of cringe a little bit, is we need money. You know, these things don't happen for free. We're very fortunate that we have got some large funding grants from different organisations. We're a contracted partner of Croydon Council, but that money doesn't pay for everything we know we need to do. Even if we had twice as much money as we had now, we wouldn't be meeting the demand that there is for the service we can provide. So help us with some fundraising. If you've got a great idea for a way to raise some money, get in touch and we'll help you put that together. And help us continue to support families.
Well said on that last point. And never has that been more important than at the moment. The need is there. COVID has brought it to the limelight. Lots of people are struggling. So please, if you're in a position to volunteer your time, volunteers to help families and volunteer to raise some funds for this incredible group of people. Tiny small example, we always have the Jumble Trail in my ward every year, and at least 2 of the houses that I know take part in the Jumble Trail do it exclusively for the sake of Home Start. Mm-hmm. It's more about money, but every single penny helps.
Indeed, it does. We are not a huge organisation. We don't have a huge bank balance. We pretty much spend everything we get on supporting families, but it doesn't cost a lot to do something useful or beneficial for a family. At the moment, we're doing an awful lot of food parcels. We don't have any specific funding for food parcels, so we've had to raise money specifically for that. But £10 will buy a family all the essentials they need potentially for a week. So it's, even small amounts of money donated from members of the public or through fundraising activities make a big difference. So it's not that we constantly need thousands and thousands of pounds. We can make a small amount go a long way.
And to reiterate, Derek and others do it, really do practice what they preach. Derek's been incredibly involved every single step of the way with helping out the Mayor's Charity in order to give Home Start the help they need, including genuinely running almost entirely on his own one of my fundraisers around Christmas, the Mayor's festive chocolate fun tasting, where he showed us how to taste chocolate. So incredible talent Derek has on the side is that he's a master chocolatier as well. So you'd be amazed the different things that you can do. Thanks again for that, Derek. You're wonderful.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Now, we started talking at that point about how people can help, but is there any other way that you would like people to be able to help?
Well, I think there are some practical things that people can do quite quickly. In terms of awareness, I'd say seek out our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow us. And once you follow us, when you see things that we're doing that you think more people need to know about, spread the word about that, share that, retweet, whatever. So get in touch with us that way. That immediately raises our awareness. If you are part of a group that meets regularly, obviously we can't do in-person chats at the moment, but I used to spend quite a lot of time going around to different groups, just introducing Home Start to that group. And we'd be happy to do that as well. And we can do that virtually online. So if you have a group that's meeting and you'd like to know more about Home Start, get in touch. On the volunteering side, it's very simple. If you think that you've got some time, and probably we'd be looking at something in the region of 2 to 3 hours a week. If you feel that you can offer that time, get in touch, become one of our volunteers. All of our volunteers have to go through a training course. They're all DBS checked. So it's good for you, it's good for the families, it's good for the wider community. And the third thing is on the fundraising side. If you'd like to make a donation, go to our website. There's a donate now button. If you've got an idea for a fundraising event, get in touch and we'll help you make it happen.
So just to reiterate that, there are so many ways you can get involved. You can come and just volunteer a few hours a week of your time. We're not talking anything onerous. You can make that donation. You can spread the awareness and ask Derek or anyone else in Home Start to come and to your organisation. There's nobody that can't do something to help these amazing people. So I know this sounds like a bit of a broken record, but do support them. I genuinely beg all of you to do that. I think that's bringing us largely towards an end of the pre-prepared questions. And this is the bit that I like best coming up at the interview now. This is where I take all of my interviews slightly by surprise. Derek's brilliant in the chat. He's just put the Home Start's website address. I'll make sure that gets put at the bottom of the YouTube comments as well. But for those interested, it's www.croydon-homestart.co.uk. That's www.croydon-homestart.co.uk. But back to what I was going to say, the bit where I surprised my interviewees. The last bit I've stolen lock, stock and barrel from my favourite podcast from something organised by the absolutely amazing Jason Flom, from where he calls it closing arguments, where I sit back turn my mic off and be quiet, and I leave the last 10 or so minutes up entirely to the interviewee to talk about whatever they want to. So Derek, I will leave it to you.
Thank you. That is a little bit of a surprise. I'll keep the talk about Homestart because I think I could talk about several other things, but we'll stay with Homestart. I'll give you a little bit of history. So Homestart began in 1989 in Croydon, in February 1989. So we're just about doing our 32nd birthday anytime soon. And when we first started, it was one person who was a volunteer. And in the first year, they managed to find 20 odd families that needed some help, and they provided that help themselves. So it was that one person. Fast forward 32 years later, and we have supported over 4,000 families in that time. But also more importantly, through our groups, which have only really been running since 2017, we've probably supported 20,000 families through our groups. But one of the things that strikes me, and I do bring it up quite often, is that the first families we supported back in 1989 or the early 90s, who had their children and their babies, those children are now grown-ups. They are now parents themselves in all probability. And whether they remember that Homestart was there for them or not is sort of irrelevant. But what Homestart would have done for those families and every family in between is set that family on the right road to providing the best start for that particular child and to ensure that their future was as fulfilling and positive as it could be. We think that there are undoubtedly families now receiving Homestart support who were supported when they were children in their parents' families. And it's that ongoing cycle. I think the fact that we've been around for as long as we have, that the support hasn't really changed. It is as valuable now as it was 30 odd years ago. It's as needed now as it was all those years ago. And the demand, although the profile of demand changes, the level of demand doesn't. It's increasing all the time. So I'd like to think that in another 30 years, families we're supporting now, those children that are being born now being born in the COVID restrictions, they themselves will have families. And again, they won't necessarily know what benefits their parents got from Homestart, but we'll all know that without that support, they would have taken potentially a different path. So it's the longevity of what we do and the fact that it might seem like small things individually, but it's when you add them all together that we find the major change. Our reason for being here is to ensure that children get the very best start in life they can. And we believe that that is best done by supporting parents to make children's lives as good as they can be.
What can I say, Derek? That was perfect. The reason that I always do it like that is because if people are asked on the spot, it's always from the heart. And it's always more powerful than if I'd given you time to prepare an answer for that. So thank you all. I want to say a massive, massive thank you to Derek for giving up his time to talk to me today. And I will see all of you very soon on the next edition of Mayor Talks. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.